This is the 8th of July, 2025, and I am going to be making the statements today that I wish I never had to have made this month. There's thunder in the background. Pardon the noises. This is what I wish I never had to say. So, what happened over the past? What has happened? What has happened over the past third of a month or so, since the last 10 days of June, really? What was that you just watched and got knocked over on your back by, if you're anything like me anyway? What was that? What that was, what you just watched, was that the self-proclaimed Trump administration and the sympathizers, the lawless sympathizers in Congress, including some of the people that were willing to try to stop it, or that were intimidated. Most of them, I think, sympathize with this, but a few of them, they made the wrong choices. Even the ones that didn't want to. Shame on them. So what happened is that the Trump team, the Trump regime, the self-proclaimed Trump administration is doing the things that they would do if they wanted to get serious at this point. If they realize, oh crap, we have done a bunch of stupid things, we've frittered away a bunch of our time. What would a smart person do that wanted to be an authoritarian and failed this badly? What would a smart person do? That is what they're doing. That's why this is frightening, in two respects. And I'm going to get to the third one a little bit later. But two respects this happened. One, the Iran thing. And now we know that they're less likely to follow up on that than we thought. Indeed, that might end up going literally nowhere at this point. I think everybody's kind of forgotten about that, but I didn't. And that was the first thing that happened. It was definitely, I'm pretty sure that it was a Stephen Miller production. There may be some internal drama that's preventing them from going further on that. But, and so if that happens with this, if that same pattern happens with this, where they're not willing to do the follow-up work, we might be fine. But, so that was the first thing, was that Iran thing. And the Iran thing, the purpose of that, at least if a smart authoritarian was doing it, would be to institute a draft. And when you have a draft in place, when you have a state of war, whether or not what you're actually using the soldiers for is war related, what you can do is you can use it as a way to get around the civilian economy and the right to quit your job or to strike, and which is already limited. Like, general strikes are technically it's kind of a gray area legally. In general, of course, this regime is doing so much illegal stuff that really it's a matter of degrees. And, like, if we're doing it to restore the law, then we kind of have that's called civil disobedience. But if you have a draft in place, you can get around the sort of natural checks and balances that are present in the civilian economy, and you can make things like a general strike impossible. And I think that the reason why that scared me so much and this next thing as well is fairly frightening, is because the only reason why, the reason why I was afraid of that was that Stephen Miller is somebody, he's not stupid. He certainly doesn't have Alzheimer's or dementia like the actual wannabe dictator at the top does. But he is, and we could call him dictator as well. He will be, his regime will be short-lived. But Stephen Miller is somebody that is smart enough to know that most likely his greatest threat into his power is a general strike. And so what I saw there was that he was doing the things that a smart person would do that wanted to have that kind of absolute power if they were realizing that that was a threat. What would a smart person do to mitigate and manage and potentially get rid of that threat? And the first step would be starting a war. So, and then this budget bill that passed, scandalously passed. And let's be clear about it. The main reason why this passed at all is because we didn't fight hard enough. We got distracted by other things, by the shiny stuff, and we didn't fight hard enough to stop it. We could have ground it down. We could have probably eviscerated it more than we did. And we took a bill that would have probably been the end of U.S. democracy, just based on all of the different showstoppers. I made a community post about this, about some of the showstoppers of this bill, some of the things that we're going to potentially, none of them on their own would have done it, but one of them, more than likely, at least, would have made future resistance and rebuilding after this impossible. And so there were like 6 of them that had some chance of doing that. I listed them out in a community post. You can go over to my community tab to find that. It's one of my most recent posts. But that has been reduced to 1.5. But, and what do I mean by 1.5? Medicaid cuts. Those are going to start about a year to 2 years from now. And I don't think that America, nor our budget, nor our finances is going to be stable enough over the next 1.5 to 2 years. Like, I think that this bill is going to be renegotiated. I'm going to talk about that more later. But I think that it's going to be renegotiated. You're going to hear a lot of repetition from last video, because I was already processing that there was some chance. I refuse to concede these things, but that there was some chance that this would pass. And so I was going over what are the sort of excuses that we have to not pull the plug, to not just give up. There are much more permanent words that I could use to describe it. But what are the excuses that we have to not give up? And I listed out some of them. So you're going to hear a lot of repetition from the previous statements that I've made, the previous remarks in my last fireside. This is, by the way, this is an unconscionable delay. I should have given something to you, and I have not been. I've not, just about me personally, I've spent a lot of this time in bed. This was not time that I was necessarily working. I've been doing a lot of work, personal and school related, but that's not why I haven't given you a statement. I haven't given you remarks. And so, yeah, you deserve better. And I don't tend to use the word deserve, but my obligation to you is better than this, and to y'all, to this whole country, is better than what I've given. But anyway, back to this, what I'm talking about. So one of the big showstoppers, the one that really remains, the only one that is something that is still a threat, that is a threat to us immediately in the near term, it's still a huge threat, is this. And one of the sad parts about it, I already knew at the time, and I wish I had given you more, I wish I had come up with more answers about this. I still haven't. I wish I had come up with my answers about this before it even passed, but I don't really have answers. They're just going to have to fail, I guess. We're just going to have to do that thing that is very hard for us to do, and have some amount of faith that it will fail. That's something that for some of us is impossible, depending on what we believe. And for me, it's not impossible, but it's difficult. I don't want to have faith, but I don't think that there's any other option, because this, I can't see how we can neutralize the effects of pumping basically a military scale amount of money into this organization. Again, it's a third the size of the Chinese military, and it's bigger than the military and police forces of Canada combined. It's and the biggest federal law enforcement in the country now. I really can't see how anybody except for them, like, they're the ones that are going to have to waste that money. Stephen Miller is the one. Kristi Noem is the one that's going to have to waste all of that money by making sacred mistakes that we can ask for, I guess. By just making incompetent mistakes that save us. Like, that's all that we can really do. And they are pretty incompetent, I have to admit. But I just don't know how far that incompetence can go. How much can it limit them when they have more money than any other federal law enforcement combined? And they're not law enforcement, but that's what they're classified as. Not anymore, anyway. They're a bunch of, most of them are Proud Boys, a lot of them are J6ers, a lot of them, we've already had reporting on this, a lot of them are Oath Keepers and part of far-right organizations like that. But these people, it's, I don't know. Like, that's not an answer that I like. I like to know what we can actually do to stop something. And so, when I talk about how we didn't fight hard enough, and by the way, no matter this particular thing, the Medicaid cuts and things like that, and the raising of the deficit, which is actually kind of there are opportunities that provides us, that last one. But a lot of this stuff is stuff that we could have gotten rid of by fighting harder. But because of this amount, again, the tax cuts are trillions of dollars. This is like 40 billion or something per year. 150 billion total. So this is at the bottom of the barrel. I think that it would have taken, this would have been one of the last things to go. And so when it comes to this, when it comes to the worst aspect of this bill, at least in the near term, I think that it's not going to we should be a little bit gentle with ourselves. I do tend to focus on accountability and on holding ourselves accountable, and we'll, for F's sake, we're going to hold them accountable when this is over. But I do focus on that a lot, but I think that we also ought to be a little bit gentle with ourselves, in that this would have been the last thing to fall out of that bill. Probably what we could have hoped for best is to buy ourselves time if we had fought harder on this one. Now, I have to tell you, I do have to say some things about the incompetence of ICE. Numerous of them. I think I'll post to my community page a story that I've seen. I haven't fact-checked it necessarily, but I have heard that numerous of them of these agents have left their cars in neutral when parking them on the sides of hills. They have gotten their cars towed because they don't put license plates on. These are quite incompetent people. I would not put it past them that they might make unforced errors and give us a chance. I don't know about a lot of the things that I'm afraid of have more to do with leadership than the actual agents themselves. But leadership, people like Stephen Miller, and he is somewhat smart. I don't know how. I don't think that he's extremely smart, but he is feral, and he understands, I believe, things like that. A general strike is his greatest threat. But the things that... So what am I concerned about with this whole ICE thing? Another example of their incompetence. They build a prison camp, and it floods, which they don't care about the people there, but they do care about their wardens and things like that. It floods within the first couple of days, and they're not able to actually open the prison. That is Alligator Alcatraz, which I will always call it that. I will not call it by the name that they use. But that prison will be remembered for a long time. I think that horrible things will happen there, but they have to delay even opening it because of the incompetence with which they built that place in a couple of days, a week or so. So, not all hope is lost. But the thing that I'm really afraid of with ICE is something that was said by Kristi Noem. And I know that these people don't often have the smarts to actually put this stuff into action. Like Trump said that he would already have disobeyed the Supreme Court on day one, in so many words. That was one of his campaign promises, was to be a dictator, aka disobey the Supreme Court order on day one, and it took him several months to actually do that. So, but she has made statements to the effect of that she wants to commit coups. This is something I'm surprised that Timothy Snyder didn't write an article about this. But she has written, she has made statements that I don't think she does a whole lot of writing to the public. She has made statements that have to the effect of that she is trying, that the goal of having ICE in these places is to do coup d'etats, quote, liberate the state of California and Los Angeles from its elected leadership, which is another way of saying commit coup d'etats. And who knows, maybe that's the actual goal. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. And if they were going to do that, giving them all of this money seems to be the way to do this. So, yes, this is a major failure on our part. We should have delayed this for longer at the very least. Bided our time. Hope maybe if we had delayed it longer, we would have been able to do more. We would have been able to stop more of this from happening ourselves through actual direct action. We would have built up more of that muscle. And by direct action, I don't mean violence, by the way. But, so, and then the final thing that I was going to say is that I really, we in many ways, we approached this like weekend warriors. We got distracted by stuff that we shouldn't have gotten distracted by. A lot of it was pretty grotesque anyway, but these were spectacles, and they were largely meaningless other than the fact that they were wastes of money. Things like the parade, but especially things like his manicured speech that he made at Fort Allen, or whatever it is. It's currently called Fort Bragg. If I ever have any kind of political power, I will try to get it renamed to the name of that it's named supposedly after a paratrooper rather than the Confederate general. I will try to get it renamed to the first name of that heroic paratrooper to honor him and the sacrifices that he made, without having to have any connection to the fascist Confederacy, which is what the Confederacy was. It was fascist, and that's why these people admire it. I don't want any connection in our monuments and in our military installations to that. No more. But he gave a speech at Fort so-called Bragg, Fort Roland, that's what it is, Fort Roland. He gave a manicured speech with a perfectly manicured audience that he selected for. He handpicked to give a political partisan speech at Fort Roland in North Carolina, also known as Fort Bragg or Fort Liberty. I think it should be named after a person. That's kind of lazy. But we got distracted by things like that. Like, even me, I just got distracted. I spent a couple of minutes, some runtime on this. We got distracted by things like that, and we didn't keep ourselves focused on this bill. And enough people did that we were still able to turn this bill from something that would have most likely been the end of this country into something that is possibly survivable. Like, the math is going from 6 showstoppers down to 1.5. That cuts in half the total destructive power of a bill like that. If each of the showstoppers, if you consider each of them to have the same destructive power, which is probably a simplification. But, like, I've done the math. Like, 70% chance, 30% destructive power. If you raise that to the 6th power, if you raise the opposite of that, 70%, to the 6th power versus raising it to the power of 1.5, that's a huge difference. If you understand that, you do. But, like, this was getting rid of 4.5 of those showstoppers is a big deal. Like, we were able to get rid of some of the revenge taxes that Trump was going to put on the solar industry. We got rid of a bunch of stuff. I have that list in my community page. But overall, we didn't fight hard enough, and I just have to hope that this country and that the human race will not pay the ultimate price for that. But that is the risk that we are playing with whenever we fail and whenever we make human mistakes and foibles right now. It's very sad. And if any of you feel like that, you're not alone. You're not alone. So, what do we actually do? So, first thing, and this is the only thing that I can really say when it comes to ICE and the terror that they're going to inflict, not just on immigrants, but they're going to go on. There's a good chance that they will go on to citizens. We have to stop that, because that would be essentially a form of coup d'etat. Like, just as much as going after elected officials, going after citizens that speak their mind. If they're able to make that something that's normal, that would also be a form of coup d'etat, because the most important office in this country is the office of citizen, not any office that is established in the government, but the office of citizen. And so, when it comes to ICE, the only thing that we can really do about that, and it's not satisfying, there's some things that Timothy Snyder has said about it. None of them particularly are. The only thing we can do is keep faking it till we make it. We can fake our courage until the day that the tanks actually roll in. And they may never roll in, and that would be such good news. Until the day that they roll in, what we can do, again, they might never, is fake it till we make it. And we can fake our courage, and if enough of us fake our courage, then we can actually kick these people out. We can actually finish this regime and never get to the stages where our courage would really be tested, which are places where I think we would lose, because we do have a lot of flaws. I love you all, but we are far from perfect. I certainly am far from perfect. I don't want to ever get to a point where our courage will be truly tested. And the way that we do that is by faking it till we make it. Other people will say courage is contagious. That doesn't sound... that doesn't work for people when they're feeling bad. That kind of language doesn't work. The language that I use is fake it till you make it. So when it comes to the actual budgetary aspects of this that are not empowering ICE to do a bunch of more illegal stuff and potentially break the political order, whatever is left of it, what do we do about those things if we are able to stop ICE, or if they're able to stop themselves with their own incompetence? So, I doubt that this will be a permanent budget bill. This is where we get to the repeats of what I said last time. I doubt that this will be a permanent budget bill. This is much more of a wish list. This is basically the government crap posting. Pardon my French. This is not real. This is not real. By the way, for the older folks, that is, like, you can look up that word. Use the S word. It is a word that, it's basically trolling. This is trolling. This is the government trolling the American people. This much more so than it's an actual budget bill. The amount of the debt, amount that this increases the debt, the foreigners that want to sell us debt and that want to buy our debt, they get a vote in that. They are not obligated to lend us a single dollar. I mean, the Federal Reserve technically is, but we have an independent Fed chairman right now, and we will for a while until perhaps the end of next year. We have an independent Fed chairman. And so what that means is that they get a vote. The rest of the world gets a vote on this. And what that gives us is an opportunity. Treasuries are not going to be something that is very desired on the world stage. And what we can do is we can turn our own bonds, our own debt, as a resistance movement if we're able to get organized enough. We have an opportunity to turn our own bonds and our own debt into things that the world market wants to buy. And if we can do that, then we can actually, that will help us, one, with our general strike. It'll help provide strike funds. It will help make it easier for us to keep the parts of society that we want to keep running, like hospitals, and so that we can have some access to food and things like that, so that we can have we can pay our basic bills, our mortgages and things like that, our rents. If we can have that kind of strike funding, that could come from from borrowing money from people that want to lend to us more than they want to lend to the federal government. So the other opportunity that this provides is that it makes it more likely that there will be a renegotiation just because of a lack of the ability to sell bonds anymore. And that limits the American currency supply and finally forces us to actually have some kind of a second deal. Like, the budget bill is still in effect, but it's unenforceable because nobody wants to buy our debt. And that gives them a huge incentive, regardless of whether we do a general strike, which we should fairly soon. That gives us an opportunity to get this up and running, to get a different budget in place. Like, none of the budget bills that we've passed so far have prevented the standoffs, including the Christmas standoff of last year and the one that Chuck Schumer caved on this year, and continuing resolutions and things like that. All of this stuff has happened regardless of whether long-term budgets have been passed. And that will be much more likely if the bond market rejects the contents of this bill. And so that's really what we can do. Finally, I have a couple links. I have a link available to Resistance Labs on Saturday and 1 Million Rising on Wednesday. I will be attending the former. The latter is on a day where I have other stuff scheduled and I won't be able to attend. But I will link both of those to you, and if either one is accessible, please go there and do this work. I haven't been involved in a lot of things other than this channel for a long time. I've had a busy schedule, but I'm going to do this, and because I have to lead by example, and I think that I have valuable input. for this kind of place. We all need to be serving our country now in whatever way we can, and I have to lead by example. So I will be attending resistance labs at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is 11 a.m. Western. That is what it's labeled as, and I will talk about that in either, it's going to come after my scheduled fireside, but I might talk about that in some kind of special video. Also, I have those documents. I have my paper finished, and it's just a matter of time to get this finished, to actually be able to read it, because I have it finished. Sorry for the mistakes that I'm making. And finally, I would never be able to get away with that on an actual debate stage. Again, a lot of things I'm far from perfect, but finally, we are the people that we have control over, and we need to take responsibility for things whenever we can. Lisa Murkowski, in particular, and Susan Collins, although she did come to the light side at the end, but it was too late. Lisa Murkowski, shame on you. Shame on you. And Susan Collins, because Susan Collins, you could have stopped this on your own as well. You supposedly did, but you were the one that allowed the debate to even begin. That requires a simple majority. The VP has no power in that. So one person could have stopped that both times, and you didn't. And shame on you. Shame on you. You could have stopped this. This is the second time, or third time at this point, that some major thing that has really made this country worse and less likely to make it has been allowed by one single vote. And shame on you. And Tom Tillis, by the way, you did a good job this time. I have to praise you. It will be hard for me to forget what you did with Pete Hegseth, allowing him to take over the military. Although he has not actually been as malevolent as we thought he was going to be. But he has definitely allowed Stephen Miller to have a lot more influence than he should. And so shame on him. And it's going to be hard for me. I love what you're doing now, Tom Tillis, but it's going to be hard for me to forget what you did with Pete Hegseth. I will try. If you continue to act in good faith now, I will try. I will try, but I will remember that. But I will try to put it in the past. Anyway, so this is the second time that this has happened. And shame on the people that could have decided differently at every stage. House Republicans as well, but they have been much more colonized even than the Senate. And we were all kind of lying to ourselves once it passed the Senate, that we could really do anything to fix it at that point. But anyway, so yeah, we gotta all keep faking it till we make it, and we gotta organize, and we gotta start talking funding and things like that. And this is a big opportunity in that way. Also, not just the people that want to buy our bonds, they're not just the foreigners, by the way. A lot of those are Americans. A lot of the people that buy these things, some of them are institutional investors that are investing on behalf of people. Some of them are companies. Some of them are just regular people. This is a major opportunity. And like when this time comes, if you have a lot of extra cash, consider buying these bonds, these hypothetical bonds that I talk about. Consider lending your money to support the resistance. There's a reason why we rely on bonds in warfare rather than on donations. Bonds are good in a lot of ways. One of them is that war bonds and bonds like that. One of them is that they help. They add some stakes to it. Like you're lending your money, you're thinking about how in the future you're gonna get it back, and so you have skin in the game that you don't have as much of when you're just donating. And so definitely consider buying those if we're able to get this established. God bless you all. Definitely take better care of yourself than me. Stay off the drugs. Stay away from the other stuff that you use to numb yourself. And we're not talking necessarily about food here. Don't be part of the problem. But also just don't drain away the energy that you need. And I'm saying all of this stuff from experience, by the way. I'm not better than you. Don't drain away the energy that we need to win against this thing. This is not the end of mankind yet. I understand that that's a very not comforting word to say, and it shouldn't ever be the end of the human race. But it's not yet, and there are still reasons for us to be here, and frankly, it's unconscionable for us to leave our obligations behind at this moment. And so God bless you all, and stay strong. I love you, and I will see you again on Saturday. I'll try to see you again on Saturday morning. I have some stuff that day, but I'm gonna try to be better about this from now on. And I will try to see you again sometime after that resistance lab thing. And maybe I can find a time when I can read the last chapter of my paper, which is the best chapter. It's the hopeful chapter. Anyway, God bless you all, and I will see you at all those times, hopefully. Take care.